Lee Priest declares war on Bostin Loyd. That and much, much more. This is Christian Geek from StrengthAddicts.com, and I'm going to break down Lee Priest's video statement by statement, giving you a reaction to each one, and at the end, I'm going to tie it all together and give you my final verdict. So let's get over to the Word document and see what Lee said. At 0:45, Lee Priest's interviewer says, what sort of thing is he telling young kids to take? That right there, it's a low blow. It's a sensationalist media soundbite. You know, trying to imply that Boston is talking to young kids, you know, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids, 13, 14, 15, whatever, and he's not. And he's not telling, you know, 15-year-olds to take gear, and, you know, that's just a shitty question and a shitty answer, and it really shouldn't have been on a video except for the fact that I think Lee's trying to get some views. At 1:25, Lee Priest calls Bostin Loyd a fuckwit and a tool for the way he assesses people. Listen, whoever you go to, whatever prep coach, whether it's local or a national name like Bostin Loyd or an old school guy like Milo Starship or whatever, they're going to be honest with you. They're going to say, look, you know, your delts aren't there, or maybe you got to bring up your legs, or maybe your arms aren't quite there, whatever. And if he's saying you should synthol that or this or that or whatever, everybody's using synthol now. There's people that don't use it, but I would say the vast majority are using it based on the people that I've spoken to over the last 10 years in articles and interviews and in person, off camera, off record type situations, and everyone's using it. So the reality of it is that I don't think he's a fuckwit or a tool. I think he's just assessing people like everyone else would. At 2:20, he says for the amount that Boston's taking, he looks like shit. Again, it's a subjective sport. If Boston looks like shit in Lee's eyes, then I can't argue that. You know, that's, you know, Lee's opinion. At 2:35, he says all the drugs he's taken, he's done nothing. Well, he's done something. He won the Contra Costa, which is a pretty decent show. You know, he took the whole show, and I think that's something, right? And so I don't know. At 3:03, he calls him a fuckwit again, and he talks about why he has the following that he does, and he just says the guy's a tool. Again, a lot like he did at 1:25, calling him a fuckwit and a tool. Again, I don't know really what to make of that, except for maybe the fact that Lee Priest might be a little envious that Boston is now the new bad boy of bodybuilding, that Boston has a following that he has. You know, Lee Priest now 42 years old, hasn't been on an IFBB stage in quite some time. You know, still seems to get sponsorships. Last I heard he was with New Breed, but I don't think he's with them anymore. But he's just not as popular as he once was. He's, you know, he's a 42-year-old man, and he's getting older. And Bostin Loyd is a young gun, getting a lot of support. And even if he doesn't get a pro card, I don't really think it matters, because Boston is just that popular. And I mean, I don't know if it's envy or it's, you know, bitterness associated with old age, but Lee is definitely bitter. At 3:22, he calls Bostin Loyd the laughingstock of the bodybuilding world. Again, I think this is just an attempt on Lee Priest's behalf to get Bostin Loyd to make a video about him and have some kind of an online war. And I don't think Boston should do that. I think Boston is so popular right now and is making so much money and doing so well with his Team 3CC and his pre-workout drink and working with Muscle Sport Mag. Interestingly, both Bostin Loyd and Lee Priest work with Muscle Sport Mag, which is a great magazine. Check it out, musclesportmag.com. Joe Pietaro, Greg Valentino, phenomenal. Great radio, great print, great everything. But no, I don't think Boston really should make a video to respond to Lee, because I think that's going to help Lee more than it's going to help him. At 4:22, you know, he talks about Boston's not telling the truth. I mean, he's telling the truth about what he uses, but he's not telling the truth as far as what people need. And Lee talks about his very low dosages. And the reality of it is that Lee Priest has said on a number of occasions that he's a genetic freak. He said that, I believe his mother competed also, and she never took anything and looked phenomenal as a bodybuilder. And Lee, even off gear, looks ridiculous. He's ripped. He's got good size. He retains his strength. He's a very, very gifted bodybuilder. But, you know, the reality of it is that because he's a genetic freak and he takes low dosages, great for him. But that doesn't mean that those low dosages are going to work for everybody else. How tall is he? Like 5'2" or something? I mean, I'm like 6'5". Boston's a tall guy too. I mean, so it's like the reality of it is that what works for essentially a midget may not work for a tall guy, or, you know, or someone that whatever. So in reality, you you know, he's a lot shorter. He's got great genes. He's got a body that's predisposed for building muscle, and he may only need low dosages. But again, everybody's different. Everybody responds differently to, you know, carbs and fats and protein. So of course everyone's going to respond differently to, you know, synthetic exogenous hormones. So for Lee to take an attack at Boston because he uses a lot more, again, I don't support that. Then at 521, he says that for the amount of gear that Boston's taking, he looks like a drag queen girl. That again is another desperate attempt to get Bostin Loyd to make a video attacking Lee Priest, to anger Bostin Loyd. And what is a drag queen girl? Is that a girl that dresses up like a guy, or is he trying to say just a drag queen? Because if you're saying a drag queen, you don't need to say the girl part, because the girl makes it seem like it's a girl dressing up like a guy. But I think he's trying to say that Boston looks like a transvestite or something like that, or a woman. I don't know. But this is, again, Lee Priest really trying his hardest to get under Boston's skin, to get Boston angry, to get Boston to make, you know, a 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 viewed video, and then help Lee in turn get more views for his channel, which is getting about, you know, 50,000, 60,000 views a video, which is respectable for an old man, but Bostin Loyd's doing a lot better than that. And then at throughout the video, he says that Boston should shoot air into his veins, that he should put a revolver to his head. Then the interviewer says, "Oh no, but Lee's medicated, so he's just kidding." So if Lee's medicated and he's just kidding, why the fuck did you do this video? I mean, if he's that, like, you know, off, then why is he making videos? The whole medication issue is bullshit. Of course, Lee doesn't want Boston to kill himself, but just the fact that he would say shit like that, again, a 42-year-old man, about a young guy, it's just sad to see, you know, an elderly person like Lee attacking, you know, a young gun that is just really making money and making waves and getting fans and living the life of bodybuilding. You know, Lee was 20 years old or whatever, and he was a pro or something like that, or 24 years old, and he was getting sponsorships and contracts. How would he have liked it if, like, you know, some old bastard was attacking him and trying to make him feel like crap? You know, it's not cool. And then he's like, kids shouldn't listen to Boston. They should, and I don't know, is he saying they shouldn't listen to Boston, but they should listen to Lee, a guy that's suspended from the IFBB, a guy that apparently can't hold on to a supplement contract for very long, a guy that couldn't even work with John Romano. I mean, God, I mean, how, it's like, I mean, whatever happened to that show with John and Lee? I mean, it's just like, it disappeared. I mean, maybe John was the one that was hard to work with. I don't know. I know John doesn't like me now because I don't know why. And I know Lee flipped out on me on a message board because at the time I was friends with Aaron Singerman, and I thought he saw it as a betrayal that I was friends with Aaron, because if I was friends with him, I couldn't be friends with Aaron, and somehow that made me a sellout. And Aaron, look what Aaron did to me later down the road. I mean, Aaron's like no choir boy, but nonetheless, Lee is just a really interesting character. And then at 6:44, the interviewer asked him what he thinks of Bostin Loyd, and he's like, "That's what I think of him." And the camera turns, and it's a picture of a toilet, you know, and he says, you know, Boston and that toilet have a lot in common. They're both full of shit, and it's just a very sort of immature type video. Something that you wouldn't expect, you know, from a man that's closer to half a century old. It's just not something that you would expect. So again, I have to really just give it to Boston in this. Lee's video was really not very moving at all. It was just very bitter. It was very just juvenile. And I hope Boston watches this video. I'm going to tag him. I'm going to tag Ariella. They're both friends on Facebook. I'm going to tag Joe Pietaro, who I would think would not be able to make a comment because, like I said, Joe Pietaro he's the man. He's the guy that runs Muscle Sport Mag along with Greg Valentino, and I would think that neither one of them really would want to say anything because, you know, they're both consummate professionals. They both care very much about Muscle Sport Mag, and they both probably care very much about both Boston and Lee. So I don't think they're going to make a comment, but the reality of it is that, you know, I hope that Dave Palumbo will talk about it, and we did discuss it a little bit, and I'm going to send the video to Dave, and possibly he'll talk about it on Heavy Muscle TV or one of the Muscle in the Morning shows. But the reality of it is that I just think that it's probably a hard pill to swallow for Lee Priest, who was always used to, you know, getting all the attention, and now that he's, you know, entering old age, it's harder for him to just see someone like Bostin Loyd that's really emerging, you know, where all the beautiful women probably want to be with Boston, even though Boston's engaged to Ariella Palumbo, who's gorgeous. I mean, you know, couldn't ask for more. But you know, all the women probably at these expos are flocking to Boston. You know, all the guys want autographs and photos, and you know, if you know, I think Lee is thinking in the long term. You know, if he's ever at an expo or whatever, like the Arnold Classic or something like that, and God forbid he's in the same row as Boston Lloyd, you know, Boston's gonna have a line around the corner, you know, and all Lee's gonna get stuck with are like, you know, people that don't speak English and overweight people and people that can't hear, and just like basically the old crowd, you know what I mean? And Boston's gonna have like all the beautiful young women. He's gonna have like the really muscular guys and, you know, the movie stars. And Lee's gonna get stuck with basically like, you know, the maintenance crews asking him, hey, can we vacuum under the table or something like that. So he's just, I think what's going on is that Lee, as Lee gets older and, you know, and more frail and all that, he's just bitter and he's upset at someone like Boston, who's a young gun. You know, even Lee's made videos that his natural testosterone levels are through the roof, and he, you know, he doesn't even need HRT, which again, you know, anyone that, you know, uses for as long as he's used, and even though he didn't use, just the fact that he's in his 40s, you would think his testosterone levels would drop, but the fact that he has to tell everyone that he doesn't need him and that he was shocked that his doctor said they were through the roof. And there's just like a lot of attempts on Lee's behalf, I think, to make himself sound young and virile and strong and powerful and popular. And when someone like Boston Lloyd comes along that is actually all these things in reality, it just, I think it just does a number on Lee. And I will always say that Lee Priest is probably the best bodybuilder 5'2" or shorter, and that includes Sean Ray. But just the reality of it is that now he just has to, you know, sort of accept the fact that he's going to fade off into obscurity in his old age and just let young guns like Boston Lloyd have a little bit of that spotlight.